Dianne Feinstein of California called on Thursday for the Senate Judiciary Committee to hold a hearing after 2 children died in the custody of Customs and Border Protection, ignoring the fact that many died previously whilst Obama was in control, but that gets overlooked, as we know. Feinstein, the top Democrat on the committee, made a request in a letter to GOP Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, who is set to chair the committee in the new year. And she said, "These heartbreaking incidents," I don't recall her saying that when they were all being harvested, but there you go, "are sadly consistent with the previous reports of widespread abuse of children in immigration custody and the judgment of medical and mental health organisations that the Border Patrol facilities are not adequately staffed or equipped to properly care for the children." Well, given Mr. Trump's not even been in 2 years yet, what happened to it being adequately staffed and equipped in the previous 8 years of the Democratic government? You know, these people forget rather quickly, and they think everyone else forgets. Well, some do. Now, earlier this month, the Department of Homeland Security said a 7-year-old Guatemalan girl, Jacqueline Carl McQuinn, had died hours after being taken into Border Patrol protection. Now, the agency said this week that an 8-year-old Guatemalan boy, Felipe Alonso Gomez, had died late Christmas Eve in the custody of Customs and Border Protection. Now, the Homeland Security Secretary, Kirstjen Nielsen, said on Wednesday all children in Border Patrol custody had received medical screenings, and she had directed a series of additional actions to care for those who enter our custody. Now, the Customs and Border Protection Commission, Kevin McLennan, said Wednesday that he was reiterating his calls for more help and resources from Congress. And in a letter, Feinstein cited the deaths of the 2 children along with the reports of a hospitalised 5-month-old and murdered children in Tijuana. Nielsen reiterated Wednesday that 6 migrants, none of whom were children, died in the custody of Border Protection during 2018. And she noted it had been more than 10 years since a child died in the agency's custody. What a load of lies that is. So a week after the government failed to agree on a final funding bill, well, they agreed on the bill, just that clowns decide to meddle with it. The Environmental Protection Agency is preparing to follow suit and also shut down. Now, the agency, which had enough funding to remain open for a week, courtesy of the Trust, after the federal government officially ran out of funding, will begin furloughing employees as of Friday, and in the event of an appropriation is not passed by midnight Friday, the EPA will initiate orderly shutdown procedures. In a message, I read a message obtained by the Hill from the acting administrator Andrew Wheeler to the employees. Of course, the IRS has now followed suit. Hopefully, whilst they're in shutdown, things can be developed on that front. Of course, last week we had an explosion at a Con Ed plant in Astoria, New York, that sent a wave of bright blue flashing lights across the skyline and disrupted power at LaGuardia Airport, causing delays to some flights. Now, the light could be seen from Manhattan shortly after 9 p.m. following a brief electrical fire at the substation in the northern Queens neighbourhood. That's more fun and games. More fun and games. LaGuardia had to switch to backup facilities during the blackout, and power has since been restored, but not before Delta Airlines and American Airlines had to divert some of their flights to nearby airports. Other services were being delayed accordingly. We're having a lot of issues to do with airports. The one in London with the so-called drone, except there was no drones. One group of officials says there was no drones, and another one saying there was. But either way, I don't see how a single drone, or even if there was a fleet of drones, can keep an airport shut for 30 odd hours. It doesn't make sense. Egypt next. Police in Egypt have killed dozens of militants during security raids on their hideouts, according to the Interior Ministry this week. The raids killed 40 terrorists in Giza and North Sinai on Saturday morning, and it said militants were planning a series of attacks on tourist sites, churches and military personnel. Yes, we all know who they are. For those new, these are paid mercenary groups designed to cause trouble or continue trouble in the Middle East as peace is being organised within the Middle East behind the scenes. Now, the raids followed Friday's roadside bomb attack on a tour bus in Giza, and no group has yet said it was behind the blast, which is unusual. Normally terrorists are very honest and say it was me, which is contrary to what everyone else who does anything wrong says. And unfortunately it killed 3 Vietnamese tourists and an Egyptian tour guide. But Islamist militants have targeted tourists in Egypt in the past. Now, police killed 30 militants during 2 early morning raids in Giza, while the remaining 10 were killed in El Harish, the capital of North Sinai province. And the Interior Ministry group said a group of terrorists were planning to carry out a series of aggressive attacks targeting state institutions, particularly economic ones. No surprise there, given what's going on, as well as tourism, and also Christian places of worship. It's all that jihadist stuff again. It also added that police had seized bomb-making materials, ammunition and a large number of weapons during the raid. Back to New York. It seems they're all being routed out now, following the NXIVM stuff and a whole heap of others of skullduggery that's been going on with these private groups. And the latest is 4 members of a Jewish sect have been charged with kidnapping a younger brother and sister in New York State. Now, the prosecutor says the men belong to the ultra-Orthodox Lev Tahor group, which is based in Guatemala. Now, they were accused of adopting a 14-year-old girl and her 12-year-old brother from the village of Woodridge, which is north of New York City, and the men planned to take the pair back to Guatemala after their mother fled the sect 6 weeks earlier. Now, the woman had reportedly feared for the children's safety and felt the group, which was founded by her father, was becoming more extreme under the leadership of her brother, and its teachings reportedly include that women must be veiled from head to toe in black tunics, which is hardly Jewish, is it not? And the 4 men aged between 20 and 45 are accused of kidnapping the siblings from their home on December the 8th and taking them to a small airport near the city of Scranton in Pennsylvania. They were then flown to Mexico, but located in the town of Tenango del Aire on Friday morning, and have since thankfully been reunited with the mother in Woodridge. As for the 3 suspects, Nachman Hellbrands, Meyer Rosner and Jakob Rosner were deported from Mexico on Thursday and arrested on their arrival in the US. And the 4th suspect, Aaron Rosner, was arrested by the FBI in Brooklyn on the 23rd of December and is accused of providing financial support to the group. All men have been charged with 1 count of kidnapping, which carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. Hopefully that'll be another one of those dodgy groups that gets shut down, a bit like Scientology and some of them Mormon groups. Another migrant caravan is heading north this time from Honduras, but it's not coming to America this time, with an estimated 15,000 people. And as the thousands of migrants who fled the Central American country in October remain stranded at the Mexican border waiting to enter the US, this even larger group is prepared to depart for the north on January the 15th. They say they are even bigger and stronger than the last caravan. Irma Garrido, a member of the migrant advocacy group Rectiva Tijuana Foundation, said the latest caravan will likely pick up even more people from El Salvador and Guatemala as it heads towards Mexico. Like the last caravan, the group plans to share its progress, including which routes they will be taking on social media. And however, unlike previous groups, Garrido said that the members of this caravan are planning to stop short of the US and find work in Mexico. Given that shelters in Tijuana are already overcrowded with migrants waiting to apply for asylum in San Diego. This is becoming a common problem. You know, it's a problem in America, it's a problem in Canada, it's a problem in Europe. They're just forcing people out of countries and essentially emptying it out, a bit like California, really. And I'm hoping we can make some progress on that, where those people can go back to their countries and be provided with the basic essentials in life and a nicer way to earn a living than getting involved in some of the more unreputable trades that go on in those countries, like drugs and prostitution and all kinds of other stuff. You know, there's plenty of industry to go right round the world to not need. I said this in one of the review shows. You've got people in Africa shooting tigers and elephants and rhinos to make money. You know, we have the funds with the trust, once the clowns are out the way, to provide sufficient funding to create industries where the people of those countries can do real work that is not harming to the animals or the planet. Where there's a will, there's a way. Portal people continue on their digging dirt on Donald Trump track. Now that the Russian collusion is once again proven to be a load of BS. And this time they're targeting Mr. Trump's New Jersey golf club and state they may have committed federal immigration crimes by handing out fake green cards and social security numbers to workers. This is according to new evidence collected by prosecutors. I wonder who those prosecutors were. Now, the New Jersey Attorney General's office is investigating the allegations, and Special Counsel Robert Mueller, go figure, and the FBI are part of the probe as well. They just keep digging dirt and hoping some of it sticks. You know, Trump's got skeletons in his closet, as all politicians and businessmen who are that wealthy. Make no mistake about it. But this is a witch hunt that goes way above anything else. I don't recall Anne being questioned or Obama to this level. You know, Obama was in 8 years and didn't get questioned and ridiculed and threatened and harassed like Trump has in less than 2. You know, where's the balance? Attorney Annabelle Romero, who represents several undocumented immigrants who used to work at the Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, says he handed over the fraudulent green cards and social security numbers that the club gave to 2 of his clients, Victoria Morales and Sandra Diaz. I wonder how much he was, Annabelle, might be a woman, mightn't it? I wonder how much that attorney was paid to do that. It's beyond a joke. An Oregon senator demanded to know on Friday what President Trump's administration is planning to do about the United States' relationship with Saudi Arabia after it emerged the country may have helped one of their citizens flee a week before his trial. Ron Wyden said in a letter first obtained by a local publication, the Oregonian, to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, really, and the acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker, and Friday, that the new theory from authorities is Abdul Samir Noura used an illicit passport to jet home on a private jet provided by the Saudi consulate should be reason to push forward with action. Given it was in that region, who's to say it wasn't the SSP who took him back? And yet they'll just blame Trump. Funny that. Noura is believed to have taken off in June last year, and 10 months after mowing down and killing Fallon Smart, who was 15, in Portland. The Saudi government recently confirmed to US Marshals that this July that Noura had returned to Saudi Arabia just 7 days after he went missing. Officials said they were doing everything they can to get Noura back to the United States, and Wyden continued, said, since the US does not have an extradition treaty with Saudi Arabia, what steps is the Trump administration taking to ensure Mr. Noura is accountable for the death of Ms. Smart? And he has demanded a response from the State and Justice Departments by the end of January. Lawyers for the accused NXIVM sex slave cult leader and former Smallville actor Allison Mack are arguing that she isn't guilty of inducing forced labour if the Church of Scientology isn't guilty of the same charge. Well, yes, you did hear that correct. In court papers filed in Brooklyn federal court, Mack's lawyers argued that Mack's threat to release naked photos and disparaging statements made by cult members against their relatives doesn't rise to the threat of serious harm required to prove someone engaged in forced labour. Now, Mack and NXIVM leader Keith Raniere are accused of using the photos and statements to get free work and to force sex with Mr. Raniere. The government argues that Miss Mack obtained forced labour through threats of serious harm, with serious harm being the embarrassment that would result from the exposure of one's collateral. For those who don't remember, we outed NXIVM on THI about 7 months before it broke publicly. And one of the conditions of joining that cult is everyone, it was mainly all women, from what I gather, they all had to take all the clothes off and have pictures taken of them before they could join the cult. This is a common practice where they always have something on you. And after they'd had fairly explicit pictures taken, they were then branded by hot irons. You know, it boggles me my mind that how many women signed up for it. Here, come in here and take your clothes off and let me take pictures of you. It really boggles the mind. But this is what happens with these mind control style cults. And thankfully they're crashing down. Anyway, the courts have found, however, that such an outcome, albeit embarrassing, does not amount to serious harm under the statute. The argument cites a 2009 case in which a couple unsuccessfully sued the Church of Scientology for forced labour, based on the same thing. Canada. Next year could see the highest gas prices in Canada since 2014 because of the new carbon taxes they're introducing up there. And current low prices caused by a glut in supply in recent months are set to rebound sharply in 2019, according to Dan McTeague. I wouldn't bet on that. Senior petroleum analyst at gasbuddy.com. We still have a week or two before things get really strange, McTeague said from Oakville, Ontario. You're going to see 2019 increases because of carbon taxes be much more expensive than in 2018, which puts us at the highest prices for energy going back to 2014. As oil-producing countries tackle their oversupply of oil, no surprise there either, the overhang will start to be whittled away come January, not just in OPEC, but here in Canada as well, with the curtailment of 325,000 barrels by the Alberta government. And he forecast extreme volatility will become to characterise 2019. So they would like. Mr. Trump had to step in and attack a retired four-star Army General Stanley McChrystal on Tuesday for questioning his honesty and morality. I'll have more on how or why that's taken place in the op-ed pieces. The Commander-in-Chief mocked McChrystal's military credentials and derided him as a dog, a term the President frequently uses to criticise opponents. Now, McChrystal recently said that he could not work for an immoral person like Trump, and the former top commander of the US and international forces in Afghanistan, no surprise there, was asked if he would accept a job in the Trump administration during an interview on ABC this week that aired on Sunday, and he replied, "I'd say no. It's as important for me to work for people who I think are basically honest, who tell the truth as best they know it." And after 34 years in the US Army, McChrystal was forced to resign in 2010 by former President Barack Obama after the publication of a Rolling Stone article that quoted members of his staff criticising the then president's team. A lot of projecting going on. Perhaps they need to look at themselves. I gave out a warning of New Year celebrations in New York and London the other day, and there was credible threats, rumours flying around, particularly in New York more than London. But when you see what is playing out, and then you get this type of rhetoric from the US Strategic Command, who made an unexpected joke in a now deleted Twitter post about American military might on Monday in its New Year's Eve message, noting the big, in inverted commas, Times Square ball drop celebration at midnight. The Unified Command's account tweeted, "If ever needed, we are #ready to drop something much, much bigger." Now, the joke was followed by a slickly produced video of stealth jets with the words "stealth, ready and lethal" flashing across the screen. And the tweet encouraged followers to watch to the end. If you do, you'll see 2 bombs released from a plane, followed by several massive explosions. Now, the tweet was later deleted, and a subsequent tweet from the Unified Command's account said the first was in poor taste and does not reflect our values. We apologise. That was another threat, just to make people clear. Another threat. We're going to drop 2 planes from a stealth. This is what we're dealing with in this country. It's been hijacked. And whilst everyone spends their time hating on Trump, this is what's carrying on, and no one's saying a damn word. It beggars belief. Yellow vests, not quite, but similar, of women in southern India state of Kerala formed a 620 kilometre, which is 385 mile, human chain in support of gender equality here, amid a row over access to a prominent Hindu temple. Now, the Sabira Imala shrine was historically closed to women of menstruating age, defined between the ages of 10 and 50. But some bizarre rules around the world. India's top court overturned the ban in September. I think we reported on that in the show. But protesters have since attacked the female visitors. And the Women's Wall was organised by the state's left-wing coalition government. Officials told BBC that around 5 million women from various parts of Kerala had gathered across all national highways to form the chain, which stretched from the northern tip of Kasaragod to the southern end of Kerala. I'm not pronouncing that name. It's got about 16 letters in it. Organisers had predicted the turnout of around 3 million, and officials said the short demonstration was to combat inequality and counter the efforts of right-wing groups that support the ban on women. And one young demonstrator, Kavita Das, said this is a great way of saying how powerful women are and how we can empower ourselves and help each other. Of course, I support the move to allow women of all ages into the temple, and I don't think tradition or any kind of backwardness should stop women. Those who want to pray must have the right to pray. And another woman stated, it's not the main issue here today. The main issue is we believe men and women are equal. Absolutely. So kudos for them for forming that chain.